everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'll be going through the fights that I think the UFC need to make off the back of UFC 299. But before I get started, make sure to hit the like button, share button, and subscribe button for the great content and to show love and support to the channel as I'm on my journey to 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, let's get into this. We saw a great card for UFC 299, where we saw Sugar Sean O'Malley dominate Marlon Vera from start to finish, not even close, sort of proving without all doubt that his loss to Marlon Vera back in 2020 was nothing more than a fluke. Also, we saw Dustin Poirier return after that long layoff with an absolute spectacular knockout win over Benoit Saint-Denis to still keep himself at the top at that lightweight division. And we also saw a successful debut for the UFC's latest signing in Michael Venom Page over his unanimous decision win over Kevin Holland. We also saw the star-making performance in Jack Della Maddalena when he knocked out Gilbert Burns in the third round to sort of rise himself up into the top 5 in the division. And also we saw Petr Yan snap his 3-fight losing streak over a unanimous decision win over Song Yadong. Right, let's get into this. Let's get into where I think the fighters should go afterwards. So I'm going to start with the winners first. And let's start at the start of the main card, Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. Obviously, I did my review on my channel, so I'm not going to really go over my review. That will be in the reviews video, so make sure to check that out for what I thought of the event overall. In this video in particular, this is going to be me matchmaking for the future opponents for each people on this main card, and plus one fight that can now be made off the back of a victory in the prelims for a certain fighter that I'll touch on that at the end of the video. But yes, Petr Yan picks up the win. It was confirmed on Ariel Helwani's show by Petr Yan's manager that he suffered quite a serious groin injury the week out. In fight camp, considering pulling out, he didn't. He also suffered a few leg injuries, a leg injury as well. So he's not going to be active for quite a while. So for Petr Yan, I think for him, he's going to have a long layoff, and you're thinking where he's going to be now. Obviously, he's not going to fight Merab. He's not going to get his a potential rematch in Aljamain Sterling because he's jumped up. So for me, there is a guy there in Henry Cejudo. Obviously, you know, those two have sort of had a back and forth over the past, you know, and Henry Cejudo did announce that he's not retiring. He said that he's still willing to stick around at 135. And the matchup between Petr Yan and Henry Cejudo is a good matchup. It is a good matchup, and I believe that should be the matchup that should be made. Obviously, we have to talk about Song Yadong just coming up short. He's still going to be ranked inside the top 15. However, I think for him, I think I'd like him to see him in a fight with like a Ricky Simon, which I think would be a great matchup for him. Personally, it would be around someone the same place in the division, or someone like a Kyler Phillips that's just come off a good win against Pedro Munoz on the same card. So potentially a Song Yadong Phillips or a Song Yadong Ricky Simon would be great. But moving on, Jack Della Maddalena knocks out Gilbert Burns in the third round as he was heading for a unanimous decision loss. And that win has now catapulted into the top 5. Catapulted him in the top 5, where he called out Shavkat Rakhmonov. Great fight, great call out. For me, I don't think this is the route that he should be going down personally, because the UFC have got a bit of a situation here. They have got 3 undefeated fighters at welterweight that are hitting a bottleneck at the top of that division in Shavkat, Ian Garry, about to say, and Jack, but Jack lost twice before. I mean, okay, undefeated in the UFC. So they're all on a collision course at the moment. Would you want to risk Shavkat losing his O or Jack Della Maddalena getting handed his first UFC loss yet? I don't know. But I do believe that there are a couple of fights here in the top 5 that I believe that should happen. One, I know it shouldn't happen because this person needs to get the title shot in, but I do believe the UFC will try and make this happen, and that'll be Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena, because I just don't think the UFC, rightly or wrongly, are going to give Belal Muhammad that title shot. And I've got a feeling, for me, Jack Della Maddalena may face someone like a Belal, or maybe like a Colby Covington, maybe. It just depends, because it's really difficult. Obviously, we'll touch on another welterweight that one like where he's gonna go, and I just can't imagine Jack's gonna make the jump up to 11-5 and then fight someone that's lower down. And when you're looking at the top 5, it's basically him, Shavkat, Bilal, and Leon, and really, like, Jack. Okay, obviously great win, but he's not going to get the title shot. He could get the Bilal fight because that's a UFC move to do, keeps Bilal out the title shot. Because I do believe that the UFC do want to run Rakhmonov versus Edwards. Personally, that's the way I think they want to run it. But Rakhmonov said that he's not going to be around till August. Even though I think the UFC will probably want to get Leon in for July, because obviously Manchester. But it's going to be really, really interesting to see what they do. But for me personally, I believe that they should match up Jack Della Maddalena with Belal Muhammad, because I think that's going to happen. And yes, it's going to be a great fight, and I reckon that's the fight I'm going to see. Just it's really unlucky for Belal, because I just think this is the way it's going to go, and I don't think the UFC are going to give him Ian Garry. Not going to risk Shavkat, because I think Shavkat is in earmark for that title shot against Leon Edwards, and he's not going to get the title shot. But or maybe a wild card would be: would you get Kamaru Usman back? Avenge. Do you know what? Actually, scrap that. Kamaru Usman versus Jack Della Maddalena would be an interesting fight. Obviously, Kamaru Usman, Gilbert Burns, they had the title fight, which Usman beat him in. Have they been training together? Because Usman think, hold on, he's just knocked out my good friend. Do I come down to welterweight now to sort of avenge his loss, maybe? But I think Jack Della Maddalena, Usman may be a great fight. There are still great options at welterweight, so it is really a hard one to pick. But I think in the UFC's eyes, you want to keep the undefeated fighters in the UFC away from each other for as long as possible. And I don't think it's ready to have Ian Garry, Shavkat, and Jack all collide without a belt on the line yet. So I believe that they won't fight each other, but someone like Usman, Belal, Colby. If I'm going to be a betting man, I know that I've waffled a little bit. If I'm going to be a betting man, I am going to go with Kamaru Usman. I think Kamaru Usman versus Jack Della Maddalena is a fight that will be a great fight. I think this fight's going to make. They're going to make. Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns, so unfortunate. He was dominating that fight. He was dominating the ground game like many of us would expect. Absolutely dominated the ground game as much as you expect. Was literally about a minute away from picking up the unanimous decision win, and then just get caught with the flying knee and just got pounded for the knockout loss. And for me, yes, Gilbert Burns is going to slip down the rankings. So we're talking at fights to make for him. I'm just trying to think, maybe a Jeff Neal. A Jeff Neal. I was going to say Vicente Luque, but I think Vicente Luque and him are great friends, so I don't think it's going to happen. Actually, no. I think Gilbert Burns versus Sean Brady would be a great fight Gilbert next, and it'll be a great opportunity for Sean Brady as well, as he takes that step up in competition. But moving on, we saw Michael Venom Page make his UFC debut against Kevin Holland, and yeah, put on a good performance, got the win as most people expected. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the UFC are going to do with MVP. I'm still under the assumption and under the illusion, but because of his age, he's going to get the rocket strapped to him so they can get him a title shot as soon as possible. And the only way is that, like, I know about the Wonder Boy fight, but a Wonder Boy fight doesn't get him close to the title. And even MVP said, like, yeah, it's a good fight on paper, but there's been multiple times when we've seen like good fights on paper. Derek Lewis, Francis Ngannou, we're thinking, wow, two big knockout artists. They're gonna knock the 10 bells out of each other, and then we just saw an absolute stink fest. Same as Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. Thought it was gonna be a great matchup, and then it wasn't a great matchup. And for Michael Venom Page, like, he's gonna be here for he's gonna be here for a good time, not a long time. And I don't think a Wonder Boy fight is gonna get him close to a title, but I think one particular guy would get into a title, a guy that has always been talking a little bit of shit, Ian Garry. Yes, Ian Garry. I know I spoke about him when we were talking about Jack Della Maddalena, but Ian Garry. Ian Garry said in the press conference that Michael Venom Page wouldn't beat Kevin Holland. Like, not at all. Sort of like laughed him off as a threat. And I'm thinking, okay, a bit of needle there. And MVP came through against Kevin Holland. And you're thinking, with the UFC heading back to Manchester in July, you telling me MVP versus Ian Garry in that Manchester arena is not going to sell tickets? I think so. And it gets Michael Venom Page literally a fight away from the belt. Literally a fight away from the belt. Will it happen? Probably not, because you don't want to. I think it'll be a tough fight for Ian Garry, as much as he dismisses him. It'd be a very awkward fight for Garry Michael Venom Page. It'd be a fight that we'd want to see. And that's a fight I want to see the UFC book, is MVP versus Ian Garry. You know, I know MVP's been very respectful, but Ian Garry's talking his shit, so you're going to talk the talk. You need to see you walk the walk. And if you put in a performance like you did against Jeff Neal, then I think MVP's got a very good chance of beating you, because Ian Garry was doing his best track runner impression, just running around the octagon, not really wanting to engage. But I think the speed of MVP is going to cause him a lot of problems. So Ian Garry versus Michael Venom Page is personally a fight that I'd love to see. But moving on to the co-main event, we saw Dustin Poirier knock out Benoit Saint-Denis. That left me absolutely devastated. Absolutely devastated, because Benoit was my guy. I predicted him to win. This is going to be his big year. He's going to end #1 contender. Still could happen, by the way, but I think the way the old guard are moving at the top, they're sort of keeping that division on lock for the time being. But for Dustin Poirier, I think there's only one thing for him, and that's the title shot. I know some people are going to go, Dustin for the title? I'm thinking, yeah, because Charles versus Sarukian's on 300. Got Gaethje Holloway 300 for the BMF belt. Dustin didn't take a lot of damage in it. I know he spent most of the time trying to do his like jumping guillotine impressions, but didn't take a lot of damage. Looked good, looked crisp. I think Ali Abdelaziz tweeted it, Islam tweeted it, and tweeted about it. And to make the fight in June, when he's due to return, like, are you going to expect Gaethje, Sarukian, Oliveira, even a Max Holloway to turn around from April to June, where I predict we're going to get two wars between the two guys again? We're going to see a war with the four guys at UFC 300. Are you going to expect them to turn it around in June? I don't think so. And Dustin Poirier does have that prestige of being a former interim champion, one of the best fighters in the division, never to win a belt. And plus, we get a fight that we'd want to see, because we know that Dustin couldn't beat Khabib. Could he beat Islam? I think he could, but the only issue would be for that potential fight would be Dustin doing the jumping guillotine, not getting it, and Islam just finishes him with a ground and pound. Personally, or gets him down in the submission, does this does the side submission, and then finishes in that way. But and then for Benoit Saint Denis, he took the risk, he took the gamble, didn't work out. Did come in with a staph infection, so that probably, if you think about excuses, that may be a good excuse for it, but I don't know. Where does that leave Benoit? I'd like to see him face someone like a Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker versus Benoit Saint Denis, a banger. It's a banging fight, so I'd take that all day long. It'd be a great fight. I think the lower rank fighters at lightweight are sort of getting booked up, like obviously like Bobby Green's fighting Jim Miller at 300. You got Moicano Turner at 300. So some of the lightweights are booked up. So Benoit Saint Denis versus Dan Hooker would be a great fight. And last but no means least, with the main event, Sugar Sean O'Malley, whose his next title defense is going to be. And for me, it's only one answer. It is Merab. I know O'Malley bodied Merab post-fight scrum, but let's be honest, this is the next logical fight for O'Malley on his way to solidify himself as one of the best bantamweights in UFC history. And he's called him out for the Sphere at UFC 306, potentially, which, you know, I'm down for that. I'm down with that big event. Sugar Sean against Merab. I know that he said he wanted to go to Spain with Ilya, but that fight's going to be there. That fight's going to be there if they keep winning, but there's no need to rush. There's no need to rush for the super fight. The super fight will come to you if you put in the work, and Sean O'Malley's been putting in the work. So I reckon he will get that super fight at some point. However, for now, him versus Merab is the fight to make. Because Merab is the real #1 contender. It's not like O'Malley's cleaned out bantamweight and he's waiting for a challenger, so he needs to jump up to 45. For me, he's still got a bit of work to do before he can get that super fight. But yeah, Sugar Sean O'Malley absolutely put on a 5-star performance against Marlon Vera. I felt so sorry for Vera because he just got absolutely battered to pillar to post, like the Hulk did to Loki at the end of Avengers. That type of beatdown, because that was a hell of a beatdown. But where does that leave Vera? I know where that leaves him for the short term. It's going to leave him resting and recovering because I think he may have fractured an orbital bone. The cheekbone looked a bit effed. So he's going to be taking a long recovery time, really. So I just hope he makes a speedy recovery. Where that leaves him, I know I mentioned Piotr Jan versus Henry Cejudo, but Marlon Vera was supposed to fight Henry Cejudo before that fight got cancelled, so I'd like to see if they can try and rebook it. But I'll touch, just before I wrap up the video, I'll just touch on a fight that can now be made off the back of the headline of the prelims, and that is Curtis Blades Curtis Blades fraud-checked Jalton Almeida to now we're going to get the rematch of Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades, a fight that we didn't really get to see much of at all. Tom Aspinall threw the first leg kick and then his knee buckled in 15 seconds. So the fact that Curtis Blades won, he didn't have it his own way first round, but, you know, he got the finish in the most oddest of circumstances. However, I think Curtis Blades versus Tom Aspinall in London. No, actually, it's going to be in Manchester. Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades 2 in Manchester for the UFC heavyweight title. Book it. I know I didn't say interim, but let's be honest, he is the real champ now. But anyway, guys, everyone that's tuned in, make sure to hit the like button, share button, and subscribe button. Yeah, make sure you stick around for more great content. I'll try and get another video out this week. At least another video or 2 out this week, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. But until next time, peace.